The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
If you love the entrepreneurial journey, how about subscribing and giving us a 5-star review? Wherever you get your podcasts, follow or subscribe and give us a positive review so more entrepreneurs out there don't need to feel alone. Thanks. Amazing. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. Today I have Carl Mannion with me, who is a serial entrepreneur, and I'm just exhausted reading your profile on LinkedIn, Carl. How are you today?
Absolutely brilliant. It's just another day, another opportunity to find more opportunities in the world and help grow and become successful in our various fields.
Good. Right. As I was reading your profile, you were once in the health and safety training game. Okay. Can I make a confession?
Oh, God, go on. You weren't one of my students, were you? And you had an accident.
No, I was not. But I tell you what, I had possibly the most boring meeting I've ever had with a health and safety professional when I ran my recruitment business. It was 2 hours. I thought I was going to die of boredom. How come you're Mr. Interesting and Entertaining and you were in health and safety?
Because like so many other things, I like to turn things upside down and on their heads. Health and safety is probably the biggest thing that drives or strikes dread into the heart of any small business owner, because it's one of those, it's an online course and you've got to just sit there and drink your coffee and play Tetris while you're listening to somebody churning on in monotone. This is the most important video you will see, and health and safety doesn't work that way, actually. That's total crap. Health and safety is really important, but the delivery of the message is also important. And the vast majority of health and safety people are not trained to deliver the message. They are trained to understand what the rules and the regulations are, like accountants.
Yeah.
They're trained to follow a tax code. When you are delivering a message in training, in any training, health and safety or otherwise, it's really important to, number one, understand your audience, understand the individual learner need, and then be able to get that message across in a way that they understand, where they leave the session thinking, God, was that really what we were just doing? Or what? Yeah. Why do I know so much about this subject all of a sudden? And the main reason for that is we use humor, we use directed comedy, and we also use real life, real world experiences that every single person can relate to. Brilliant. And that is how you get the message across in health and safety if you do it right.
Yeah, because this guy, and this was like 20 odd years ago, had no humor whatsoever. He'd had a sense of humor bypass at a very young age.
But it was a very safe bypass, though, so it was okay.
Yes, it was. I don't think there's enough humor in business.
No, there isn't.
There really isn't. What gets me is that so many business owners, large and small, take themselves far too seriously. None of us are doing brain surgery unless you are actually a brain surgeon. And there are definite health and safety aspects to lots of jobs, lots of industries, lots of sectors. We all know that. But you can still have a laugh.
Absolutely.
When do you think we lost our sense of humor in the workplace?
I probably think when HR was invented.
Ooh, yeah, good point. Never thought of that.
I think, there's a lot of things now, rightly or wrongly. I'm sort of on the fence with a few things where I can speak to some people in their 40s, 50s and 60s and say, how did you meet your husband, stroke wife, whatever the partner might be? And they say, I met in work. And there was a lot of relationships in the 60s, 70s and 80s that were made in work, very successful relationships. Yeah. And now there is, not that I particularly agree with it, but there are lots of sort of do's and don'ts now. And of course, some of those things are absolutely right. Wolf whistling in work, is that right or wrong? Of course that's wrong. Do I need a training video to tell me? Not me personally, but really. I think some people do, depending on the type of work. But I also think that we're creating these barriers to becoming people. You know, I try in my own workplace to be as approachable and be as friendly as I can with my team. And the goal for that is because then they will trust me if there is a problem. They can come to me and go, do you know what? I like this guy. I trust this guy. You know, he's going to be able to listen to me and show real empathy in what I need to discuss with him. And very often, if we put these barriers up, which is the suit, the tie, the office, the door shut, and you know, you're not allowed to speak to me, you have to speak to your manager, who then has a manager in front of them, who then has a manager above them, then you can get to me. But obviously you don't want to do that because you're too intimidated. I think business owners, business professionals as a whole, they lose a lot of value because some of the very best ideas I came across, even in health and safety consultancy, was actually from the people who do the job at the ground level. The actual frontline operators who make the money. And if it's okay, I'll share with you a very quick story about health and safety consultancy, but it just makes me laugh. I tell everyone this story where I can.
Go for it.
There was a sandwich making factory not too far away from where I live, and they asked me to come in because they had an upsurge in people who were making civil claims against repetitive strain injury. We now call it upper limb disorder because that makes it very different, of course. And basically, it just means that people have got sore wrists, like carpal tunnel syndrome, that sort of thing. And it is incredibly painful when this happens. And they asked me to come in because they wanted an expert to come in and have a look at this and, you know, basically say what they're doing is right. And they have this big line of people working, and you have a guy who does the bread, puts the bread on the conveyor belt. Then you have a lady who spreads the butter. Then you have another person who puts on the ham, and then another person who puts on the cheese, another person who puts on the tomato, and then there's a cutter, and then it gets packaged at the end and put in a box. I said, great, let's go and have a look at your operation. And they got the line going and everything's going great. And the next thing, there's a whistle. I'm like, oh, what's going on? They said, oh, we rotate the jobs. I said, oh, okay, what's that for? I said, to reduce the RSI. I said, perfect. So now the guy who was doing the bread is now doing the butter.
Okay.
Who's now, and then in 5 minutes, he does the ham. But you can see, because somebody upstairs thought this was a great idea. If we just rotate the jobs, that there's no more RSI. And it took me about 11 minutes, I think it was, because it was two lots of iteration moving around the factory to realize, of course, that they haven't prevented any RSI whatsoever. But the reason why this is important is because the frontline operators just do what they're told. Because they had fear of being able to approach like the operations manager or the director of the company and go, you know, this seems a little bit daft because we're still doing the same job, just a slightly different outcome, you know. And that's a real story, and I got paid really well for that. But you know, the art of common sense, as people often like to refer health and safety as, but that was a very real example of why being approachable, having a sense of humor, being willing to listen to your teams is such an important aspect of the job, and not be stuffy and ever so serious, because unfortunately people become perhaps intimidated or afraid to come and speak to you.
They do. And it's a real shame. You're absolutely right. The best ideas come from people at the coalface, dealing with the customers, or like you say, dealing directly with the product or the manufacturing process, because they know it inside out and back to front. You don't. You're several layers removed, aren't you, in a bigger business, maybe one or two in a smaller business. So how do you keep yourself relevant? Because you've got the podcast, you've got a domiciliary care business, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got is it a property development business as well?
Yeah.
Have I missed anything?
Health and safety consultancy, training.
Still doing that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Still doing that. Right. So when you're spinning all those plates, and that's a lot of plates to spin, Carl, how do you keep yourself in tune with actually what's going on?
I think keeping an open mind is quite important. And I have a number of people who work in each of those particular businesses to support each. They're all service led, basically. We don't sell any products. We're all service related businesses. So there's some common themes that run throughout that. So I often talk to my wife about this. I say, you know, sales is sales, you know, if you're selling condoms or if you're selling jelly beans, it's the same principle. You know, can you relate to other human beings to the point where they can know, like, and trust you enough where they're going to make a purchase.
Yeah.
And very often people make emotional purchases based on their connection with the brand or with the individual.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got a multi-billion-dollar budget for getting your brand out there, like some companies might have, who can just do it, then you have to rely on your personality or the personality of your business. And in particular, actually of interest, sort of the healthcare industry as a whole is probably a lot more stuffy than the health and safety industry.
Right. Interesting.
It's heavily regulated,
Right.
and there are lots of requirements within that for each individual who works in the sector to have certain qualifications, certain experiences. So they mold a certain type of individual who leads and manages those services, which is really quite interesting. I just actually read today the Care Quality Commission, which is the regulator for care in England. They've hired as a chief executive a chap who has been a chief executive for NHS trusts for the past million years. And is looking forward to bringing some really great new innovative ideas. And I just,
really
shake my head and go, wow, NHS, pioneers in innovation, of course,
right. Yeah, because they're doing so well.
Absolutely. So well they're doing. And obviously they don't put like nearly a third of their budget away for claims for staff and patient care. But the answer to your question about spinning plates, it's about trusting other people to do their jobs as well, not micromanaging. I sort of provide the strategy and the vision, and that's all I can really take credit for, being honest. Because the operational effectiveness, the operational delivery, that is very much the other team members that I bring on board. I'll sort of take credit for their training and development because that is me. But in terms of, today I'm here having this conversation with you, and right now we've got 170 care clients being seen at this very moment around the northwest of England and Wales. So, for me, it's that important stage is having the right people in your business, in your service, and making sure that you can trust them to deliver the goods. That is probably how I spin so many plates.
Brilliant. And we are always entrepreneurial.
I think probably yes would be the short answer. I think a lot of the times entrepreneurship is born out of necessity. When I think about some entrepreneurs that are probably in the press or were in the press until recently, yes, there are always going to be people who are born into privilege. I do remember a certain former president, maybe soon to be president again, talking about the small $1 million loan that they got from their father not too long ago. Pardon?
Teeny tiny loan.
Yeah, just that small $1 million loan,
Yeah, pocket change.
Yeah, it was only a tiny loan, $1 million. Who's not going to miss that?
Yeah.
I didn't sort of grow up with that small $1 million loan mindset. My mum was on state benefits. She was a single parent. My father was a prolific drug user who was left the sort of family, so there was no sort of no backup, if you like. And when I was quite young, I would say not primary school age, but when I was in high school, there was a couple of things I had to do. Bit of a side hustle. So it was from memory, I think it was 38p to get the bus back then. It's about £38,000 to get the bus now, I think, per one way. And I'd get £1. I'd save my 38p. I'd go to the shop, spend the other 62p on those sweets that you get in the jars, like a quarter of sweets, pear drops,
I remember
bonbons.
them well. Yeah. Licorice torpedoes was my favorite.
Absolutely. Yeah, those sorts of things. I can't stand licorice. We're never going to agree on that. It was, for me, it was strawberry bonbons all the way.
Yeah.
But basically go there, go to school, sell them for 5p each. Made a little fortune on that. And that was enough to basically give me pocket money for the rest of the week. I didn't know what to do with money because I was never educated with it, but I knew I could spend it. And I spent it on jujitsu classes, actually. And I actually became a jujitsu instructor. That's sort of where I started my entrepreneurial career. So in school and then into jujitsu, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I often think necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
And a bit like you, grew up in a single parent household. Me and my brother, mum was on a student grant, no money, and you have to be creative and inventive in order to, as a kid, get the things that you want. So I had a babysitting round. I didn't sell sweets, but I had a babysitting round. I made loads of money out of that, which was great because I got to do my homework at the same time. And eat food from their fridge. Winner. So yeah, you do. You just get creative. So when I mean, it's for an entrepreneurial person. I'm going to go on a bit about health and safety again. It's not a natural move into health and safety. Was that an accident?
Was there a pun intended there?
There was indeed.
Okay.
Well spotted.
So what happened was I worked, like I said, I was a jujitsu instructor. Organically, that went into the private security sector because I could fight and I could teach others how to fight, but more particularly, when you sort of professionalize combat, i.e., working for independent contractors to the military, that sort of thing, which is I had the privilege to do. I came back and I started teaching jiu-jitsu, but I also started teaching security, which at the time there was a new regulator called the Security Industry Authority, the SIA. Okay. So we opened up a training school to teach people how to get into security. Who were unemployed people. So we had a small micro contract to deliver that. Not a small $1 million contract, an actual small contract, like for the 50, 60,000 pounds a year.
Right.
And they were offering at the time free NVQs for people who were business owners.
Okay.
And I'd just done a level 3 in business management, having no formal qualifications in business before. Okay. And I phoned them up. And I said, right, I've done this. Is there any more? And they said, yeah, you can do this level 4 in business management, or there's also this level 4 in health and safety, but you've got to pay the certification fee, which is 174 quid something. And I was like, health and safety, how hard's that going to be? And I said, yeah, and I'll do health and safety. I'll get that done in a week.
Right.
Well, my God, that week turned into a year and a half.
Yeah.
And that year and a half was probably some of the most stressful times for me to learn a new skill, because I went into this thinking health and safety, don't trip over that. Don't put your cup near the laptop. Don't watch that wire. That's the sort of impression I had of health and safety. Right. And of course, that's absolutely not the case. There's an absolute ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that most people don't necessarily understand in health and safety or appreciate it. And I learned that the hard way. So unfortunately, my business, the government changed its policy on training for unemployed people, and our business went into liquidation.
Oh, God.
But the week before the business was due to shut forever, some lady contacted me, some recruitment agent. It wasn't you, I don't think.
No.
She said, I see that you've got behavioral safety background, and we're looking for a project manager to deliver a training package for behavioral safety for this really big company.
Okay.
Have you got some experience doing that? And obviously my company's just been liquidated. So I'm like, of course.
Yes.
Yes, I have. So I had absolutely no knowledge of that. I sent my CV off.
Yep.
And I went on an online free course. I'm going to plug them. I'm not affiliated with them, but allison.com. It's still going now.
Brilliant.
Behavioral safety. And there was like a 3-hour course on behavioral safety.
Amazing.
And I did the course and I went for this interview and I basically just regurgitated this course. And they were like, oh, wow, you got loads of knowledge about this stuff. And I was like, well, her swish, obviously, darling. And I got the job. I hated virtually every aspect of the job other than delivering training to the people, because they were all wonderful. But the job itself was absolutely awful. Some not very nice people working there and so on and so forth. But the actual job of helping others was fantastic. And that's how I sort of started in health and safety, really. So it was completely accidental. It was the fact that it was 174 quid to do it. And I thought it'd be a piece of a walk in the park. And fortunately, I was proven drastically wrong.
I love entrepreneurs for all of those reasons you've described, Carl. Of course I can do it. Shit, I need to go and read a book or watch a video on how to do it, and then I can deliver it. We have all done that. Guilty as charged.
What does Branson say? Say yes, learn later.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, this looks easy. I'll do that. This looks easy. I'll set up an online training for business owners on an app. That was my thinking 5 years ago. Turned out to be the hardest thing ever. But
Yeah.
anyway, we won't go about that. So you're now doing the Lazy Wealth Creation podcast, which is, when did you get into podcasting? How did you get into it? What's the podcast about?
So one of the things that I went through this really, really difficult time in my personal life, divorce is the dreaded D word.
Yeah.
And I was broke.
Right.
I had really good job, but I never seemed to have any money, which was really interesting. But once
We've
I
all been
got,
there too.
yeah, well, I mean, it's stuff that people can relate to, I'm sure,
Yeah.
and when I got divorced, before I got divorced, sorry, I was interested in property. And
Okay.
there are some companies out there in the UK, I won't name them all. You can find them all on my bio anyway. But I contacted this company back in 2015 and I said, look, I'm really interested in property. I've got no money, but I'm really interested to learn. And I'll come to your events. I will be the waiter. I will be, whatever you want me to be, I will do it if I'm allowed to come and learn with you
Right.
guys. And they said no. And
Okay.
they actually didn't even reply. So that was the worst kind of no. But in 2022, I put some stuff on my credit card,
Right.
and it was £2,500, which was quite a lot of money for me at that point in my time. So this is only a couple of years ago now. This is
Yeah.
July 2022, so just over
Yeah.
2 years ago. And I went on the training, absolutely loved the training. And at the very end, they're very good salespeople, this particular training company, to the point of they're like a cult almost.
Right.
And they said, right, now you've had the training, you know what you're doing, but, no one's going to hold you accountable. And accountability is one of the better ways to ensure success, which I do personally subscribe to. I totally agree
Yeah.
with that. I'm sure
Yeah.
as a coach, you would agree with it as well.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
But it's £10,000.
Oh
And I
my
was
God.
like, oh. So I still remember vividly to this day, I was going on my little app on my phone with all my credit cards. I was like, I've put £2,000 on this one and 1,500 quid on this one because my limits were quite small at that time.
Yeah.
And I basically put 10 grand across 6 credit cards.
Right.
And then I had to convince my girlfriend, who's now my version number 2 wife.
Okay.
So she's wife version 2.0.
The,
I had to
the upgrade.
the upgraded version, exactly. Everyone says, "Oh, why do you call her version 2?" I said, "Because she's the upgrade."
She's the upgrade. I've got an
Obviously.
upgrade husband, so I'm
There we
relating to
go.
all
So
of this.
yeah,
Yes.
the better improved model, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I said, "Look, love, I'm just going to tell you now. I've just spent £10,000 on that thing," and it got me thinking. Because now I'm in a position where I can give back.
Yeah.
And at the time when I really needed help, and I really needed somebody to give me an opportunity, there was no one there.
No.
So what I thought was, well, why don't I give something back? And the podcast seemed like a really sensible way to give people ideas on how to generate what I call side hustles that are suitable for solopreneurs. And that way we're giving it for free, the information. They can go away, try them, test them. There's a new thing every week. We bring out a new idea where they can go away. And if it doesn't resonate with you on week 1 or week 2, maybe week 3 does resonate with you. And you go, oh, I'll try that idea, or I'll get my daughter to try that idea, or my son, or whatever. And the idea is we want people to basically get their side hustle on, to teach them entrepreneurial skills. And the biggest part of that skill is to fail, because everybody thinks, oh, I'm in business, I want to make my first million in 6 weeks. I'll make my billion in, month 7. I'll drive a Ferrari by the end of Christmas. And it's complete and utter nonsense, because of course, everyone who's done it knows better.
Yeah.
But the whole point of the Lazy Wealth Creation podcast is exactly that. It's to give people ideas that they can go away and try at very, very low cost. We don't charge anything, but it's something that, as an example, this is just on one episode. I tell people all the stuff I've done is tried and tested, so I know it works because I've done it for myself.
Yeah.
I set up an event on Eventbrite where I take people on cycle tours across Wirral, where I live, the Wirral Peninsula. You've got Liverpool, Ireland, and North Wales on the 3 points of the thumb that stick out to the map.
Yeah.
So I said, right, we're going to take you on a bike ride where you're going to get to see the coastline and see Liverpool and the coastline see North Wales. And it's 40 quid a ticket. And on the way, you can buy a t-shirt. We'll take you to the pub and you can buy a meal, of which I get a commission from the pub. And we'll get you a selfie and a hashtag with a hat, which you pay 8 quid for the hat.
Great.
And the insurance cost, which was the only real cost, was £70 to be a cycle tour.
Wow.
And the bike, which is your own bike, obviously, if you've got one, which I didn't have, so I could have done this. Anyway, I made 2,000 quid in the first week.
Bloody hell.
And I returned everybody's money because I have got no intention whatsoever on bloody cycling 15 miles around Wirral.
No, wouldn't be my bag either, that
No.
call. No.
But I just wanted to prove that it was possible. And all it cost me was a couple of quid for insurance. And this was just on Eventbrite, which is free.
Yeah,
and they take a percentage of the ticket. So the actual cost to do that idea is less than £100.
I love that.
And for me, it was with no skill, no prior experience. I just literally put cycle tours in Wirral, Liverpool coastline, Wales coastline, Ireland coastline, and I marketed it specifically at Canadian, United States tourists, because a lot of them have got links to Liverpool and Ireland because of the whole, the whole migrant crossing back in the 1700s and so on and so forth. And I just figured that would be really, really good. And it was. And the point was, I'm just proving that there's something there that you can do that's really easily accessible. You don't need to be a genius. Nope. And another one I set up was a board game night. And I charged, I think it was £40 a ticket to come and play a board game. You get a curry, we feed you, and we make about 120 quid off each game night that we run. And brilliant. I still run that game night now. Because I get a lot of value out of it because it's a business-driven game night. We play games like Cashflow 101, Monopoly, and it's all designed for entrepreneurs to meet each other, to talk to each other and network. And I've done business with some of the people in that room, having never met them before.
Fantastic.
So it's those sorts of things that, I created the Lazy Wealth podcast to help people. There's no barrier to making money in this country.
No, there's not.
We live in this beautiful era of human existence where we can communicate anywhere in the world at lightning fast speed.
Yeah.
And it used to be sort of, I can only work here because I don't drive and I rely on public transport. So I can only work within, say, a 5-mile radius of my home because it's going to take me an hour to get anywhere after that where I can't afford to do that. But now you have a global audience if you're willing to look for that.
Yeah.
And there are people that you can pay if you really want to help you build stuff that you may not necessarily understand, like social media, search engine optimization on your website, those sort of things. You can pay for people relatively cheap
you can
to do all this for you now. So the point is there's opportunity everywhere. My job is to get the creative juices flowing in the Lazy Wealth Creation podcast and hopefully trigger something in somebody's mind. That's it.
I think that's fantastic. Huge believer in working for yourself. If you need an income, have a main source income and also do your side hustle because you feel like you are in control of your own destiny. Finally, you're not at the whim of a big corporate or you're no longer just a line on a spreadsheet, which is what most people are. Even for medium-sized businesses, they're a line on a spreadsheet. And if the proverbial hits the fan, if your name is below a certain line on that spreadsheet, you're gone. And it's much better to be in control of your own destiny so you can see what's coming. Have you come across a guy called Simon Squibb?
Not personally, no.
Right. He's a really interesting guy. He made his millions out in Hong Kong. He was homeless at 15. He started a gardening business. He had nothing. And he had to start a business because he couldn't get a job because he was 15 and he didn't have a house. He's got a company called Help Bank.
Right.
Which is about helping entrepreneurs get a start, get going, get ideas. People give free help. It would be a good place to advertise your podcast there, definitely, because there's loads of people looking for that kind of thing to get that start going, which is fantastic. And you're right, the UK is a good place to do that, definitely. So what drives you, Carl? What's your dharma? What's your purpose in life?
I'm a great believer in social good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I didn't come from the the sort of the greatest area.
Mhm.
And I still have friends, some family members even, who, for I could give you all the knowledge in the world and they would still be very happily staying on state benefits,
Mhm.
unemployed, taking their antidepressants on a regular basis because they're very unhappy in their life,
Mm.
but not prepared to do anything to change that. And some people genuinely are beyond the pale of help
Mhm.
because they're comfortable being uncomfortable,
Yep.
in a negative way uncomfortable, not in a
Yeah,
growth uncomfortable.
absolutely.
However, for every 1,000 of those, there might be one or two who genuinely look around like I did.
Yeah.
I was looking at my life going, wow, this is it. And actually, if I can digress just slightly, I
Of
went to
course.
a school where there was a really good mix of people. There was people from really poor areas, and there was people from middle class areas, and some from quite well-to-do areas. Because where I live, Wirral, is
Mm.
incredibly divided.
Yeah.
You've got international footballers living there, earning 20, 30 million pounds a month.
Yeah.
And then you've got people on state benefits receiving £15,000 a year in benefits. So there's a
Yeah.
huge dichotomy. And I went to a school where everybody was there from that mix. And I went to a house party when I was 14. And I went to this house, and it now I've gone to that house many times. I drive past it sometimes because it changed my life.
Right.
I went to this house party, and the mum's name of my friend was Carol, or it is Carol.
Right.
And in this house, it's got a driveway with 3 cars in it, and it's a 3-bedroom detached house with a garden at the rear. So we're not talking about a mansion here.
No.
Okay? But to me, that was a mansion, right? Because
Mm.
I came from a council house, which
Yeah.
had 3 bedrooms, but it didn't look anything like that.
No.
And
No.
I said to Cal, I was like, whose are these cars? And she was like, well, mine, my husband's, and her oldest son, David. I
Right.
was like, 3 cars? Like, we didn't have a car in our street, not one
Yeah.
car in the whole street, right? Because nobody worked.
No.
And I was like, and how did you get these cars? And they were like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, where'd you go to buy a car? And they were like, well, you go to the car dealership to buy a car. And I was like, wow, okay. And they're like, well, obviously, it's important when you own your own house, you've got it. And I was like, what? What do you mean own your own house? Because you got to remember, 14-year-old me has not been exposed to home
Yeah.
ownership, mortgages,
Yeah.
cars, car finance, even jobs. I know that sounds probably a little bit crazy, but I didn't even
Doesn't.
understand that parents work.
Yeah.
Because in my sphere, none of my parents worked, none of my friends' parents worked. So I get these new friendship groups where their parents work, and I'm like, where are they going? Like, what are they doing? And
Yeah.
they weren't on mega books. One was a school teacher, one was a milkman, but they both worked.
Yeah.
So basically, that was my sort of first exposure to how things can change. And I've totally forgotten the question now, but it was relevant to this.
It was your dharma, your purpose,
Oh, yeah,
social
that was
good.
it. The
Yeah.
social good, yeah. And when I got to this sort of stage, I was like, wow, I need to change my game here. And it's taken me a very long time to do that, to change my game,
Mm.
to learn how to do that effectively. But I thought, well, why can't I help other people?
Mm.
Why is it not within my gift? Because I've made it now. I'm financially retired. I don't have to work for money anymore.
Great.
We've got there. We've achieved that. We are literally financially retired. But now is the time when we can look back and say, well, what impression do we leave?
Yeah.
And the social good is absolutely one of them. But the second one is what we call legacy wealth.
Right.
So I don't want to create wealth where me and my wife can have a great time and maybe the kids have a great time until they squander it all.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be, realistically, people may laugh, but, the Lord Grosvenors of the world, who are, the 18th or the 13th Earl of Grosvenor, they've stood the test of time and they leave their money circulating to their family for,
They do.
long after your dust in the ground. That's the second sort of motivation. So there's actually two. The social
Brilliant.
good and the legacy.
Brilliant. I love that. I think that's no point in creating money for money's sake. No point in having money for money's sake. There's only one car you can drive at a time. There's only one t-shirt, shirt, suit you can wear at a time. There's
Well,
only
unless
one.
you're Keir Starmer, don't forget, because he got 32,000 quid for free.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, he
For
did.
clothing, I must say that. For
Yeah,
clothing.
yeah. For
So,
clothing. Yeah,
yeah.
because yeah, anyway, let's brush over that. Um swiftly before we get into
Yeah.
massive trouble
Yes.
and get cancelled. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. And I think I don't know about you, but again, your story is very similar to mine. You know, scrapping all the way up, dodging and weaving, doing this, doing that, running a business, business failed, running another business, not so great, getting another business, you know, doing all of that until you finally do get to a point where you're financially secure and it feels good. And you're like, right, okay, now it's time to share this as widely as possible because, you know, absolutely true. Neither of us are born with a silver spoon in our mouths, no trust fund, no inherited wealth, you know, no private income, nothing. And you're like, if we can do it, I'm from North Manchester. It wasn't a council house, but it was not a great area.
Yeah.
And you're like, if we can do it, other people can too. And where there's a will, there's a way. And you're absolutely right. And for very many reasons, lots of people don't find that will. And it's very complicated. My eldest daughter is a social worker, so I understand the
Yeah.
complications behind it. But for those people who can find that will, it's great that you're offering that free advice and support. I think that's amazing. So congratulations. How
Thank you.
would you describe your, let's call it the podcast, let's focus on that as business. How would you describe your business, either as a character or personality? What kind of personality traits does it have, your podcast?
I think from the health and safety background again, it's a risk-taking personality
Right.
because I've never met in all of the years that I've been on Earth, all 42 of them. Wow. I've never met a person who's been successful and taken no risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that the really important message I try to bring into the minds of people, and you're fighting years and years of stoic, poor ideology of education, which
Yeah.
is what I mean by this is you have to give me an answer to a question, and it can be right or it can be wrong, and we don't want you to get it wrong, and we want you to pursue being right all the time. So if you're right
Yes.
all the time, you get an A. If you're
Yeah.
wrong most of the time, you get a fail or an E, or now it would be like a grade 1.
Yeah.
Now it's a grade 9 if you are epically awesome and you get all the questions right and you tick all of our boxes, then you're awesome. And we teach children of a very, very young age that you have to get the question right. But this in no way reflects real life.
Nope.
Because as an entrepreneur in any area, you can set up a business, whether it's a product or a service delivery, but it doesn't matter. And you can fail epically.
Yeah.
1 time, 2 time, 50 times. And the
Yeah.
52nd time,
Yeah.
it just skyrockets because you've learned all of the failure lessons along the way. And you've gone, oh my goodness me, I know how to avoid that pitfall now. But
Yeah.
nobody, imagine if we teach young people, children in particular, at say high school age, imagine if we teach them to be creative and allow them to get things wrong. And they go,
Yeah.
right, what did you learn about that thing that you got wrong? And they go, oh, well, I learned this and I'll never do that again because now I know different. Imagine if we taught that creativity factor in schools and in young adulthood when people are in college or university. Oh my goodness me. Imagine, right, we're not going to teach you about how to build a bridge. We're going to leave you to figure out how to build a bridge. Here's some rudimentary calculations to do it. Figure that out by yourself. Here's some model bricks or some some Lego or whatever it is. I want you to go and build some bridges and then pressure test them. And they get it wrong 50 times as a group. Can you imagine the structural engineers or the civil engineers doing that? And then they come out of university and go, well, I'm not going to try that model because I know from memory last time this collapsed.
People will die.
People will die. But we did it in a safe, constructive
Yeah.
environment where you're allowed to fail rather than talking about the theory of load bearing calculations and them going, oh, yeah, and then forget it because they went out on the pop. And then, now I've got my piece of paper. I'm a structural engineer. And then, unfortunately, we look at China and the other Eastern sort of bloc where people are structural engineers where they fail epically.
Yeah.
I want people to fail because that's how we really learn. And
It is.
the biggest analogy for this is when you're a baby, because what happens when you're a baby, you get up and you start trying to walk and you fall over. and your parents or the people that care about you, they go, hey, well done. And they clap and they say, come on, try again. And you get dead excited. And I've done it with my kids, and I'm sure you've done it with yours. You go, come on, try again, try again. And you encourage them, and they get up. And maybe the 50th time later, they walk, and you're like, yay. And the kid's happy and they're celebrating. And then somewhere between that date and reaching the age of 21, they've been told completely all the way through their education, you must get this right first time.
Yeah.
I think that's crazy.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. You've got kids, I've got kids. I have certainly taught them to just learn from their mistakes. You know, you get whatever mark you get, that's fine. The thing is, you've learned from your mistakes. And if you've learned, brilliant. If you haven't learned, we've got an issue.
Yeah.
And we'll address that if that comes up. But yeah, you fail to success. You fail your way to success.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you really do. Great place to end, Carl. Thank you so much. Keep doing the work that you're doing. I think it's amazing, and I wish you every success.
Oh, thanks very much. And thanks for having me on the show as well. I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture